Happy Wednesday, you filthy animals. It's Dominic D'Angelo of adfreeshows.com, SEScoops.com, several other podcasts, but I'm here today with Robert Karpelis, Rumor Innuendo, WE Creative_ish. Robert, man, we got some good stuff to cover today.
We got a stacked show for a Wednesday. This is going to be a heck of a day. We got a lot of different things to talk about. We're going to be talking NXT. We're going to be talking AEW. We're going to be talking WWE. And Trey Owens here says, Billy and CW Wednesday. Good afternoon, gents. I am actually going to briefly touch on Billy and the CW at some point during this show. What are you, crazy? No. But I got stuff to talk about, man. It'll build up. There's a couple of news stories in the rundown you sent me today. It was the first I was hearing of them. So you're like your own mini Sean Ross Sapp.
Listen, I do my duties, my due diligence. I have a journalism degree. I'm a journalist, Robert. I'm a journalist.
Yeah, you're a real journalist here. And a quick shout out to Travis Wadlow, who wrote, "Almost missed this live. So glad to be here. We're going to make it worth your while. We got a hell of a lot of fun stuff to talk about on the show." Mr. D'Angelo sporting his Terry Funk shirt. Where are we starting today?
Terry Funk forever. Yes, let's start with the AEW Dynamite preview. They have a heck of a lineup here, Robert. I am curious to get your thoughts. My goodness. John Moxley has another AEW Eliminator match for the New Japan.
No, he doesn't, does he?
Yes, he does.
Seriously? Are you
not joking?
Is this a rib? Is this an elaborate prank that you're pulling on me?
I think it's an elaborate rib, a Tony Khan tummy jab, if you will. Is this continued Eliminator matches for New Japan titles? Yes, John Moxley will be offering up the New Japan opportunity against Rocky Romero.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, no joke. This is a shoot, brother.
So Rocky Romero, who we know worked for the New Japan office and is kind of the liaison for these two, he's getting an Eliminator match on Dynamite.
Yep. I love Rocky Romero.
No disrespect to Rocky Romero. Nice guy. I think follows me on Twitter. Cool, but imagine if you would have had the Eliminator match of Takeshita versus Moxley at the pay-per-view, and then Moxley loses, and then you have the IWGP World Title match here on Dynamite. People be excited for it.
Yes, it might be a tune-in kind of television, if you will. But now we have more Eliminator matches. Who doesn't love Eliminator matches?
Me right here.
Me too.
Guy with his hand raised. Not a huge fan of the Eliminator. And guys, if you want, I'm kidding. That's not going to be my Blue Chew plug. I won't even do that for the Eliminator.
Okay, well, Robert, guess what else we got?
I got no clue what else we got. I'm assuming that their big headline-y thing for Dynamite is the Elite celebrating their big victory over the AEW roster. Is that the big thing they're promoting?
I cut and pasted this from PW Torch, so the lineup here does not have anything advertised for those.
Okay,
guys.
Are they at least hyping the fact that it's MJF's big return?
Nothing on there that I've seen.
But we're getting Rocky Romero versus John Moxley. This is what they put out as their big preview.
Yes. Also, on top of it, Swerve Strickland is not offering a rematch to Christian Cage, but one of his soldiers in Kill Switch. So they're really embracing the what's the name of the new?
So I was going to say, I did see this. I saw this on Facebook and X. Swerve had posted. They're promoting the new Game of Thrones show, House of the Dragon.
That's what it's called.
And the idea is that Swerve is fighting a guy who's dressed like a dinosaur, which is essentially a dragon, if we're using science. I don't mind the corporate synergy. I get that it's Tony trying to, kiss up. They did the thing on the NBA on TNT yesterday where they gave the announcers replica AEW titles.
You know what? That's a good sign. I don't want to go off on a sidetrack. That's a good sign for them having a positive synergy and getting a new deal done eventually here. We talked about a little bit that yesterday. But...
Yep, they're gonna try, and you want to make your product feel the corporate buzzword, by the way, is sticky. That you are so intimately connected to everything that is going on their programming that they have no choice but to have to re-sign you. So if AEW can prove that it is a great platform to advertise Warner Brothers programming and movies. Like they promoted Furiosa last week.
Yes.
Didn't open well. So that's
I want to see it in theaters, though. I do want to be honest.
It just didn't have a great opening.
Yeah.
You want to be able to promote the other TV shows that they have. They previously had the Rick and Morty stuff that was promoted on there. So it's a good sign that these things are still happening, that we're all trying to, make nice and play along together. I'm all for it. Let's bolster the eyeballs on AEW, because contrary to popular belief, I want these guys to succeed. I want them to do well. I want a thriving world for all wrestling, as well as a number of my friends who were there, including a guy who's going to be fighting not a dragon tonight.
Yes. Who else we got on here? Is your friend Don Callis? Because he's going to present a contract.
No,
apparently.
Oh, no, he is not. Though fun, like way back machine things. Don used to have a podcast with Lance Storm called "Killing the Town," and there would be times where Don would be tied up with like New Japan stuff, and then you were like scrambling, and Lance would be like, "Hey, Don's not available. Can you fill in?" So I used to be the fill-in Don Callis sometimes on there if him or Paul Lazenby weren't available. So that's the closest we're coming to me having any sort of camaraderie with Don Callis. But he's presenting is this the Orange Cassidy thing, right?
It has to be. That's all. Yeah, I would think so. But that's what it says. He's presenting a contract. So furthering, I mean, as much as it's kind of like, okay, Don was all over the pay-per-view. And I think this dynamic, why is Orange Cassidy? What does he see in Orange? I think it kind of does further something and make something a little intriguing here with Callis.
There'll be some sort of story, something playing out. Will Orange Cassidy join the evil Don Callis family, even though the big star of the Don Callis family is Will Ospreay, who's the biggest babyface they got?
Yes. And is he advertised on here? I'm trying to look at the lineup here.
No, I didn't see his name on there.
There is. So I will say, though, there's a casino gauntlet match for a shot at the AEW World Title at Forbidden Door. So he could get involved in that. Somebody could get involved in that. Maybe.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes. But isn't the idea of the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, or the genesis of it, was this idea that it's AEW and New Japan, and then potentially other companies, like if they want to work with CMLL or AAA or something like that, to bring in the outside talent to wrestle the AEW talent. So having a casino gauntlet to determine who's going to face Swerve seems a little odd, unless the attraction here is tune in because you don't know who's going to be coming from a bunch of other companies to compete in this.
I would think that would make a lot of sense. I mean, this is not a lot of hype, obviously, because they just announced it basically after the pay-per-view. So how are you going to promote, hey, who's coming up here within 3 days time? You'd kind of want this to get the word out earlier on and be like, boom.
I would have gone one of two ways. I would have either promoted that there's going to be a gauntlet. What is it exactly called?
Casino Royale gauntlet match. Casino gauntlet match.
A casino gauntlet match. So we don't know what the what the rules are necessarily going to be. But yeah, if you're promoting it, that it's an open challenge to anybody from any company who wants to show up, and then you start having those partnerships and bringing in a bunch of people, hey, that's a reason to tune into an episode of Dynamite. I want to see this surprise thing of who's going to be there. It could be we've seen a lot of the luchadors from Mexico be featured on the show. We've seen a lot of New Japan talent be featured. There's folks in Europe you could be bringing in. There's that promotion in Africa.
Oh yeah,
that I know Ospreay has expressed interest in wanting to go wrestle with those guys. Like, bring these guys in, make it fun, but don't do it on this episode, because this episode of Dynamite should be about essentially four things. It should be about, number one, the Elite successfully beating Team AEW, which means they now have, I guess, complete control of the show. It should be number two, about the fact that you have crowned Mercedes Moné as your new TNT champion. Mm-hmm. So you've got some a follow-up there. Number three, you saw the return of MJF. So it should be MJF front and center. And number four, your AEW world champion retained. Yeah, those should be the four things that you're pushing through. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like all of those are getting significant spotlights. It does say that Mercedes Moné is going to have a TBS championship ceremony or celebration. And we're getting Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway doing the, here's why we attacked Willow.
Mm-hmm.
Two totally separate things that came out of the same match. And then there's one other segment on this show.
Yes, there is. I think it's going to be your favorite, Robert. Your biggest one.
You would be wrong.
Don't you want to sit under the learning tree? I do.
There is going to be a segment on this show called The Learning Tree.
Mm-hmm.
It is, TV Time with Chris Jericho.
Yes.
Guys.
I think it's going to be called the Jericho Vortex because he wrote that in a response of it. So I think it will be called the Jericho Vortex.
It's like a black hole. It's going to suck.
Whoa.
And it's the wrong kind of heat. And I think that's the biggest challenge you're running into here. People are chanting for him to retire. People don't want to see him on TV anymore. And they're mistaking that for genuine heel heat, that people are excited and they're having a reaction. And I used to hear this bogus narrative a lot when I was at WWE, the idea that as long as they're making noise for John Cena, it doesn't matter if they're a babyface or they're a heel. It's the fact that the audience is engaging and they're responding and they're being vocal. The difference was they were buying John Cena merchandise left and right. And there was a large contingent of people who were super into John Cena. The Jericho stuff is either people who are angry at the allegations that supposedly came out about Chris Jericho and his cavalier responses to it and the company's handling of it. And that was what generated one level of heat. There's the other part that's saying this guy is not delivering at the level that he should be at. He's not the Chris Jericho of the past. We don't like what this version of Jericho is. And it's a detriment to everyone he's working with, including now Hook.
So I'll play devil's advocate in this and say,
no, that's Adam Cole.
Oh, yeah. Well, not anymore, Robert.
That's right. We've abandoned the devil.
Yeah, that's it. So how much do you think is this? Obviously, Jericho's a big time star, future Hall of Famer, all that stuff. How much is this just the small contingency of social media and then the AEW audience that tunes in live? Like, if you're a casual fan tuning into AEW, that doesn't necessarily happen according to the ratings. But if you were doing that, you would see, oh, hey, Chris Jericho, what he's been up to. This is he's a big star, blah, 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 blah. And, you kind of get that outside element of, yeah, there's that heat. There's maybe that genuine go away heat that he's getting. But in the grand scheme of it all, isn't he still worthwhile to have on the product?
If his contributions on air were working, then yes. But his promo skills, his segments that he's been a part of have not really been entertaining or elevating anybody. This fake sincerity is the same thing that we see from the Young Bucks. It's literally the same type of character.
Sure, yeah.
When you have, Matt doing the whole, like, hey, bud, like, go out there and give him heck, and what a fine show, and you're all doing a great job, is the same thing that Jericho's doing in the, I'm just here to teach you all, I love everybody, we're all rising tide lifts all boats. It's not even the most interesting iteration of Chris Jericho. To me, there was nobody more entertaining in wrestling than Chris Jericho. For a long time on Nitro, he was the only thing worth watching. The going to the Library of Congress to get Dean Malenko's name changed to Stinko Malenko. The list of 1,004 holds. The cruiserweight, Ralphus to some degree, but the cruiserweight battle royal where he did the intros for everybody.
Yeah, that was funny.
The man is so good; he gets what is entertaining, and this version of Chris just feels lost, and not in a character way, but in a very real person way. Like, he's just lost what made Chris Jericho so entertaining.
So with this segment tonight, it might, with the TV time and this Jericho Vortex thing, maybe it'll help elevate Brian Keith a little bit more, getting word out about him. I'm a big fan of Brian Keith.
So, that's right. You are Brian Keith's number one fan.
Right. So I think maybe there's some potential here. We'll see. I'm not totally out on it. I do kind of see where you're coming from, where it's like this whole act with Jericho and stuff like that is not the one that's really clicking here.
They're doing it to be obnoxious. They're doing it to rub it in our faces. That's why they're promoting it the way that they are. But I don't know who is seeing this and going, now I want to tune in and watch Jericho get his ass kicked. It's no, I don't want to watch this segment. I'd rather fast forward through it. I'd rather go make a sandwich in the other room than not. And there's so many things for them to be putting front and center. You don't need this on this episode of Dynamite, especially going into a pay-per-view that, again, is supposed to be AEW versus the world. And who are we bringing in from outside to advance those stories?
And to your point, what they're not doing is following up on what happened at the pay-per-view that they just had when it comes to the Elite, or they're not at least advertising it. And MJF, it's just like, those
sure will get stuff, but it's like, that's what you should be putting front and center.
Yeah,
that
I'm
should
sure
be...
we're going to get that, but there's nothing there.
I genuinely don't know, especially at a point in time where the ratings are so precarious for AEW. You had all these ready-made things to promote the hell out of, and they've just sort of lost their way in terms of what the audience is focused on. And I think part of the challenge that they have is this company works at its best when the idea is he who holds the title holds the power. He who holds the title is the best wrestler in the world, and that is what everybody is going after, and that is what everybody cares about. But when your EVPs and the Elite don't care about being champion from day one, makes it hard to follow the show. And if the EVPs are fighting to take over the TV and wrestle the power away from Tony Khan, where are the ramifications to that? They won a match that didn't have stipulations. There were flamethrowers. There were hangings. There were bus attacks.
Mm-hmm.
What does it all mean?
Yes, what does it all mean? And
meanwhile,
hey, you were mentioning
NXT.
On NXT, yes.
I actually caught parts of NXT. This is a special day for me.
And speaking of making the titles mean something, NXT did that this week. Roxanne Perez has been a heel as of recent, and she has been kind of basically saying that this is the women's division to be in. This is women's wrestling. This is what the title I wanted when I was training to be a wrestler was the NXT championship. I wasn't thinking of the WWE championship. I was thinking NXT. And, she's had this feud with Ava, apparently the general manager, Rock's daughter. And here she came out and revealed that she will be facing Jordynne Grace, the TNA Knockouts champion. And this will be going down at WWE Battleground. Man, pretty darn cool, Robert. It's neat to see this kind of synergy. This is the kind of forbidden door I'm looking for.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I saw this. This is like, oh, we're gonna do the forbidden door in NXT, and we're gonna do it in a way that becomes interesting and exciting. You're bringing in Jordynne Grace, who was part of the Royal Rumble, who is the TNA Knockouts champion.
Yep.
And she's gonna go up against the NXT Women's Champion, and we are now old enough where there is a whole generation of women who view the NXT Women's title as an aspirational championship to hold. It's the title that you saw Asuka hold and make important. We saw Sasha Banks go after it, and Charlotte, and Becky, and Bayley, Paige. So you had, well, maybe we don't want to bring up Paige's handling of that title, but you've seen so many women become successful because they were NXT Women's Champions that now it really is something that holds value. And that was in a lot of ways the spark of the women's revolution. So by bringing in an outside champion who's going to go after your NXT title, it makes it feel unpredictable. It makes it feel interesting. It's a good way to put a spotlight on TNA. I think they have a pay-per-view coming up soon.
Yep.
And this idea that we're working with these other companies, but we're not necessarily all under the same umbrella. They're also teasing online. Cedric Alexander has been talking about wanting to face Mustafa Ali for the X Division title.
How great would that be? You think
this
about
is
205 Live and stuff like that, and the kind of matches that all those guys had then. This is like a good callback to all that.
I mean, what's crazy is AEW is the one that had the relationship with TNA.
Right.
That was when Ospreay was there in TNA, and Tony Khan would show up with Shivani
Kenny Omega
as heel Tony. That was what they should have been building. The idea of it is the rest of the world against the WWE. WWE doesn't want to talk to anybody. They're isolationist. So AEW gets to make the inroads with New Japan. They get to make the inroads with AAA. They get to make the inroads with the entities out in Europe. They get to have the relationship with TNA by Ring of Honor.
Right.
You had the opportunity to kind of create this beautiful ecosystem. And now, of all things, it's WWE that's doing that by extending the olive branch to TNA and using their talent. And then they're kind of doing what I don't want to say it's Hunter's new favorite thing to do, but it's kind of feeling like Hunter's new favorite thing to do, which is signing guys that we've been saying, how is AEW squandering them? And then making them look better.
It's so true. You think it's like Sean Spears shows up, he feels like a good deal. You see Ethan Page, which we're talking about now.
That's what I was waiting. I was going to set it up for you to do the big reveal, but no, it's fine.
No, it speaks to what the direction WWE is going in. And this is really, you just said it, this is really what AEW should have been doing and should have been paying attention to and embracing. Because that was a weak point of WWE is, hey, we're isolated in our bubble. AEW could have took advantage of it, didn't. And now WWE is seeing that. The coin is flipped. Here we go. Ethan Page shows up. Former AEW star, former TNA star. Here we go. And he's got a good charisma, great personality, great look. And here they're putting him right into the title picture, it seems, with Trick Williams.
So this is a course correct from a course correct, which is kind of hilarious. So NXT, when it finally started putting things together and it was really good, was this initiative of, yes, we're going to bring in new talent, young talent who haven't really wrestled anywhere before, but we're going to complement them with indie stars and stars from other promotions who are seasoned, who are decorated, who never got a proper chance elsewhere. That's how they introduced Nakamura. And Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, who didn't have chances everywhere. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. You're able to go out and get the best of what there is. Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly. And you use them to train and enhance your young crop of talent. And then when that NXT 2.0 overhaul came about, because Vince took it out on NXT when they were losing to AEW.
Right.
And he goes, you guys are inferior. So we're going to shake things up, new color palette, and it's all young guys. That was a stupid decision. You had great talent, but they didn't have who to work with. Now you're kind of leaning back into what this should be, which is bringing in or using stars who are not necessarily being utilized elsewhere. We saw Gallows, Anderson, and Michin all competing on NXT to help the younger stars. We saw what Baron Corbin was doing with Braun Breaker. I just praised Baron Corbin and my nausea came up. But now you're bringing in Ethan Page, who is a star.
Yeah.
He is a guy who you saw him on AEW TV. You're like, why are they not doing more with this dude? He got in great shape. I get that a long time ago, he was a little softer. He's in incredible shape. He's a great promo. He's an in-ring guy. You got him. You got Sean Spears. And now you're moving over to the CW where you need TV-ready talent. And now they have some TV-ready talent.
They do. It's and like you talk about, like, hey, somebody that's developed themselves. Look at Gunther and the physical change he's made. Ethan Page has done the same. I don't know. It's just it's head scratching when it comes to thinking about what AEW could have done.
The business isn't that hard, and it's unfortunate that we don't even want to steer into the narrative of just making it feel like it's all negative AEW, negative AEW. Yeah. But you look at a guy who is self-professed historian of wrestling and isn't learning from those mistakes.
No, it's like history repeating itself.
It is, but though AEW, at least to some degree, is starting to shed some of the roster.
Yeah. All right. I mean, this is a pretty good segue, I think.
That was literally setting you up for the segue, because it is one of the things in the title of the episode, Dom.
It's actually our episode graphic, too. Guys,
we have an episode graphic?
Yeah, I do this most every.
I have never once seen the episode graphic.
I'm begging you to go on the YouTube, Robert.
I'm literally living the show. I'm not necessarily going. And when I go back, I listen to the audio on Spotify, which all of you I encourage to do if you missed an episode, or pass it on to a friend if they're not catching us live. We are on audio form on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Someone who's going to have some free time to listen to that podcast is
Mr. Arn Anderson, the Enforcer. Yesterday, during a live episode on the fourhorsemannetwork.com, fourhorsemannetwork.com.
Oh, I didn't even realize this turned into you whoring out for something else.
He made mention that his contract with AEW is ending on May 31st, and he does not plan to resign. He wants to focus more on the development of his son, Brock, and he's got some good confidence in that. Here's a quick quote here. Here on my tail end of my career, I've been very fortunate to work for AEW and Tony Khan for the last 4 years under contract. He's a great human being. He's taken wrestling business and given it another option in a whole other category of what pro wrestling is perceived to be, or can be, or will be, or has been. So I just wanted to thank you to everyone who worked there. They're all exceptionally great. Tony, we appreciate everything you've done for the business. The limited time that I have left, I want to spend it with Brock because I think Brock has aptitude and attitude, and I think he will be a big player someday. I just got to get him some experience. And he went on to thank some other talents there, Tony Schiavone, Jerry Lynn, Dean Malenko. So, yeah, it's bittersweet that Arn is leaving. I think he really was one of the big impactful stars that AEW had. He complimented Cody Rhodes well, just a good moral compass, it seemed, for the promotion. And here, going to work with Brock. I mean, we've mentioned what NXT has been doing with some of these stars when it comes to it. Even Brian Pillman, now Alexis King. You could maybe see Brock in that fold for sure, I think.
I think eventually, yes, the end game is to get Brock into NXT, which in turn would mean is going to be there as well. Part of the problem, part of the issue is that Arn in AEW did not want to be an agent. Mm-hmm. When I worked at WWE, Arn was one of our agents, and he was great. He was a guy you could just give him, here are the bullet points, here's what we need from this. Hey, I got it, we're going to deliver. But in AEW, it doesn't mean that young talent couldn't go up and talk to Brock, or to Arn, interact with him, pick his brain, ask him questions. He is someone who I know is comfortable in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. If he were to relocate to Orlando and he was running promo class, Arn could be the new Dusty. Wow. As a guy who can teach these guys how to cut promos, how to work, how to have psychology in a match. The ability for him to really provide for the business is huge. And this is where I was talking before about Billy and the CW. Mm-hmm. If I were the NWA, I would be trying to lock down Brock Anderson right now, because you're also going to get Arn. And just having access to Arn in any capacity makes your show better.
Right. And if you think if AEW kept Brock, they would have kept Arn too. And I don't know. I think Brock has, he's so young into the business. He's bulking up. I've seen him recently and everything like that during WrestleMania weekend. And I think he's got that great matter-of-fact promo that can kind of channel Arn and stuff like that. And I think the ceiling is very unlimited for him. I think there's a lot of potential with him. And so it'll be, to get him under NWA or eventually NXT. Yeah, I'm totally with you, Robert, on that. So
I think NWA, I think there's other promotions out there that could benefit from a young guy who's trying to learn and getting better with all those reps, as well as learning how to do TV, and then knowing who his dad is and the wealth of knowledge that he has access to. Be interesting to see. There was another AEW departure that surprised. I didn't know this was a real thing. So
yeah,
enlighten me.
Jake Hager has left the company. He chose not to re-sign with them. We haven't seen him in forever. Him or the hat. And he was part of the Inner Circle. So you look at it, the only people remaining in the Inner Circle that are still there is Jericho and Sammy Guevara, and Sammy hasn't been on television for a while. So
yeah, the Inner Circle really hasn't been. It kind of furthers that narrative of Jericho, that everyone that gets pulled into that orbit doesn't really get elevated. The craziest thing about Hager, and I've worked with Jake a few times in my career. He actually used to live not that far from me, here in Boca. But he managed to get that hat thing over. This late in his career, it was like something out of the WWE where he's got the goofy purple hat and he got the hat over and it's a big thing. Why were they not selling the hat? Why were they not marketing it? Why was he not taking that and running with it? Like, he got something as goofy and weird as that, and he is a tremendous athlete, and he's physically terrifying when you stand next to him. I remember had him at a couple MLW shows, and he's just one of those guys where you could like flip you over your head and you wouldn't even know what the hell happened. He was part of one of the battle riots. Actually, someone who was part of that battle riot was the Blue Meanie, who just chimed in here with if anyone could coach promos, it would be Arn. Couldn't agree more with that. But surprised to see Hager gone, just because I think he is someone who they should have been able to take advantage of. And it's sort of indicative of this issue with AEW that even when guys do find ways to get over, they just don't know how to capitalize. But someone who always knows how to capitalize on all of his endeavors is my co-host, Mr. Dominic D'Angelo, who has already plugged some of his stuff, but you've got a bunch of shows going on, my man.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff cooking. RVDTV.com. Go to there. You can see the new episode of One of a Kind with RVD. We talk about Owen Hart's passing 25 years since then. He gives advice to Eddie Kingston about how to recover or cope with being injured for so long. And just a lot of other stuff on there. And go to FourHorsemenNetwork.com. You can see Arn's live episode that on there. But you can also see Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA and Greg Gagne. We cover Agile Big Men. So Bam Bam Bigelow, Vader, Jerry Blackwell, the list goes on. It's a really fun episode. Be sure to tune into that. Go to FourHorsemenNetwork.com. And Robert, that's also see my work on SCScoops.com. Robert, what do you got cooking? We got Working Stiff recording.
We got Working Stiff. We're going to be recording that tomorrow with Dan St. Germain, Mike Lawrence, and Scott Chaplin. So it'll come out either late tomorrow or early Friday. We'll keep you posted. A lot of fun things scheduled for that, including the whole group talking about the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. We're going to be talking how we would book Gunther this summer and our Mount Rushmore of wrestlers who have ruined their legacy. So that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. What's always a hell of a lot of fun is being here every day, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern on a plethora of X and YouTube accounts, including the WWE Creative _ISH account, Dominic D'Angelo X account, the SE Scoops X account, the Podcast Heat X account. Podcast Heat is who makes this show possible, as well as on YouTube, on Rumor and Innuendo, Working Stiff, and ad-free shows. Take that, Jeff Jarrett. So on behalf of the still thinking the Knicks are alive, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpelis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Knicks forever, Terry Funk forever.